We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Thank you so much, Dawn, and welcome. As Dawn mentioned, this is December 29th, actually the very last gathering of 2019. So I'm always fortunate, blessed, honored to be here to share with you guys as we close out this illustrious 2019. So let's get on with our gathering then for today. I'm going to start out with our statement of purpose. We are an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. All right, that is our statement of purpose. And next up, we have our announcements for this week. First up, have you heard that a new gentle healing class will begin on Monday, January the 27th? That's right, Reverend Shauna Summers will lead a new Gentle Healing 1 group. The group will meet weekly on Mondays from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, which is 6 to 8 Mountain Time. Anyone who's interested is invited to join the group. There isn't a registration process. To attend the group, just show up on January 27th. Please tell your friends about this new group as well, since new gentle healing groups begin only at the beginning of the year. This is the only 2020 opportunity to begin with the new Gentle Healing group. The books needed for Gentle Healing 1 are A Course in Miracles and the Holy Spirit's Interpretation of the New Testament, NTI. All right, so that's great. We have a new Gentle Healing group starting in January. Next up, we have the next 2 retreats offered at the Awakening Together Retreat House are starting the new year. Resolving for Truth from January 20th through the 24th, and the Self-Inquiry Retreat from February the 17th through the 21st. Regina will lead both of these retreats. Each retreat is $200 if you lodge at the retreat house and $245 if you stay elsewhere. There is also an Awakening Together airport shuttle available for each retreat. To learn more about these retreats and other 2020 retreats, see Retreats at the Retreat House under the Retreats and Classes menu on our website. All right, so that does conclude the announcements for this week. A lot of fun, interesting, informative, enlightening things going on coming up here with Awakening Together in 2020. So do plan to join us at one or all of these events that are going to be coming up in the very near future. And if you all would join me now for an opening prayer. As I begin today to speak about the topic that is up for discussion, self-love, I feel truly a sense of joy bubbling up within me about this topic, and I know that joy is driven by truth, because truth, joy, and love are all connected. And so it is from that place that I speak today. It is from that place of joy, love, and peace that I bring this message forward. I give this message over to Holy Spirit, as always, from the Creator, the One, the beingness, the all that is. I give this gathering over to you today. I'm deeply grateful, as always, for the opportunity to be here, for the opportunity to share in my own personal experience, and to forge as we forge forward into a new year, looking so forward to continued growth and continued joy and peace. And so it is, and so I let it be. Amen. All right. All right. So next, actually, we've had a slight change in today's gathering from the reader who's probably listed in the announcement that Dawn would have sent out about today's gathering. So the topic is still as it was, which is self-love, that too. The reading for today comes from I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj. My reader for today is Reverend Toni Fields. She'll be reading an excerpt from this amazing work by Nisargadatta, an excerpt from the chapter Mind and World Are Not Separate. So, Toni, I'm going to release this mic and ask you to come forward and read for us.
Good morning, everybody. And thank you very much, Gloria, for asking me to read. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And today, like Gloria said, is an excerpt, Mind and World Are Not Separate by Nisargadatta Maharaj. Questioner, I know you now for some years, and I meet you regularly. The thought of you is never far from my mind. Does it make me belong to your sampradaya? Maharaj, your belonging is a matter of your own feeling and conviction. After all, it is all verbal and formal. In reality, there is neither guru nor disciple, neither theory nor practice, neither ignorance nor realization. It all depends on what you take yourself to be. Know yourself correctly. There is no substitute to self-knowledge. Questioner, what proof will I have that I know myself correctly? Maharaj, you need no proofs. The experience is unique and unmistakable. It will dawn on you suddenly when the obstacles are removed to some extent. It is like a frayed rope snapping. Yours is to work at the strands. The break is bound to happen. It can be delayed, but not prevented. Questioner, I am confused by your denial of causality. Does it mean that none is responsible for the world as it is? Maharaj, the idea of responsibility is in your mind. You think there must be something or somebody solely responsible for all that happens. There is a contradiction between a multiple universe and a single cause. Either one or the other must be false, or both. As I see it, it is all daydreaming. There is no reality in ideas. The fact is that without you, neither the universe nor its cause could have come into being. Questioner, I cannot make out whether I am the creature or the creator of the universe. Maharaj, I am is an ever-present fact, while I am created is an idea. Neither God nor the universe have come to tell you that they have created you. The mind obsessed by the idea of causality invents creation and then wonders who is the creator. The mind itself is the creator. Even this is not quite true, for the created and its creator are one. The mind and the world are not separate. Do understand that what you think to be the world is in your own mind. Questioner. Is there a world beyond or outside the mind? Maharaj. All space and time are in the mind. Where will you locate a supramental world? There are many levels of the mind, and each projects its own version. Yet, all are in the mind and created by the mind. Questioner. What is your attitude to sin? How do you look at a sinner, somebody who breaks the law, inner or outer? Do you want him to change you? Do you want him to change, or you just pity him? Or are you indifferent to him because of his sins? Maharaj. I know no sin, nor sinner. Your distinction and evaluation do not bind me. Everybody behaves according to his nature. It cannot be helped, nor need it be regretted. Thank you so much. That's the end of the reading.
And thank you so much, Toni. I really appreciate you agreeing to read for me on really, really short notice this time due to extenuating circumstances. So I really appreciate that. And thank you for reading. All right, so yeah, let's get into this and unpack this a little bit. But I do want to mention our core value. Before we begin here. Our core value is core value number 4, which is we affirm one true self as the only truth. We live this value by embracing what is helpful on the path of awakening without idolizing any spiritual doctrine as truth. All right, so let's talk here about the mind and the world not being separate. What does that have to do with self-love and the topic that that I hope to highlight here today? I want to really start right within the reading that Toni just read. There is so much rich information here in this one snippet of the questioner here questioning Maharaj about certain things. And it starts out with a question, actually. He says that he's known him for some years and that he meets with him regularly. But he uses a word at the very beginning, which is sampradaya. Sampradaya. He asks Maharaj right up front, does he belong to his sampradaya? All right, so I did look up this word sampradaya, and it's actually a Sanskrit term, and it just really means tradition or religious system, and it refers to like a lineage of masters and their disciples. And of course, that's based in religious views or beliefs or attitudes. So basically, what this questioner is asking Maharaj right up front is, does he belong? Is he a disciple of his? Has he learned enough about his teachings, his words, his knowledge? Has he attained enough of his knowledge to now be considered a disciple? Right? And to me, that's an interesting question for several reasons. One being that it seems to me, well, I know in that particular time period, perhaps they were more likely to feel like they needed masters and disciples. And I know in some areas of the world, they still practice this this way of being where there are disciples and followers. So Maharaj actually goes on here to give him an answer. And the answer he gave was, in reality, there's neither guru nor disciple, neither theory or practice, ignorance or realization. he says it all depends on what you take yourself to be. Know yourself correctly, and there is no substitute for to self-knowledge. That was Maharaj's answer. In other words, there isn't a guru, there isn't a disciple, there isn't theory or practice or knowledge. We're just sitting here in much the same way that we're sitting here today, that I'm sitting here today having a conversation about this very topic, right? But there's one particular question that Maharaj responds back to the questioner with in this particular section. And that is, what do you take yourself to be? Right? He tells him to know his self correctly. And he asks him, what does he take himself to be? And to me, that is a very key, a very critical, a very central question that if the premise there, if you don't know the answer to that question, then everything that falls after that, that comes behind that, will be based in a lie, right? It won't be measured against the truth unless you start with the very foundational, basic question of what do you take yourself to be? And this is where the question of self-love starts to really emerge, all right? Understanding that what I am is consciousness, is the ground, the foundation that it has to begin from. All questions would have to come from that place in order for them to net you the truth or get you to the truth, right? So that is where the self-love begins, is knowing, and that's been one of the awakenings. That's one thing that I hope to touch on today, is that I've discovered that there isn't one awakening that happened. There's not just this one, oh, I'm woke and here I am, and it's not that. In my experience, my direct experience has been that there are multiple awakenings that occur at multiple levels. As we continue to tear down the blocks to love's presence, you experience levels of awakening, right? And so having the knowledge that consciousness is what I am is the basis, is the foundation of what self-love is. So the questioner goes on here to say, what proof will I have that I know myself correctly, right? This has been a question that I've asked, not that way, not the way the questioner is asking the question here. What proof will I have that I know myself correctly? But I've asked myself that at various times, how would I know that that I'm on the right path, right? That's one way that question gets asked. How do I know that I shouldn't be somewhere else doing something else in a different way, right? How do I know that this is the quickest, surest way to awakening, right? These questions don't come out necessarily even in that order, but the thoughts come in that way, right? Maharaj goes on here to say that we don't need any proof, right? The experience itself, the direct experience of the recognition that you are consciousness is unmistakable and unique in and of itself. And he goes on to say that the obstacles, once obstacles begin to be removed to some extent, which goes back to exactly what I was just saying, that there are multiple levels to awakening. All of the obstacles don't disappear at once, right? For some, perhaps, for people who have a sudden and immediate awakening, perhaps all of the obstacles fell away for them in that instance. But for most people, on average, you know, we lose these obstacles or move these obstacles as we go. So as these obstacles are removed, so comes those multi-levels of awakening. It could be, I mentioned at my last, the last time I shared that I had an experience where I woke up in the wee hours of the morning and heard the voice, you know, begin to talk, thoughts begin to come, and I knew that that wasn't what I was. I knew that that's a, you know, that points in the direction of what I'm talking about here when I say that there are levels, different levels to awakening, different levels to knowledge or obstacles being removed from your vision as you move along this path. So Maharaj says here that as those obstacles are removed, it's like a frayed rope snapping. And ours is the work at the strands, right? To take those tidbits as they come in, those mini awakenings as they come in, recognize them for what they are, and begin to integrate that knowledge into the full scope of what you are, right? It's essential on this path, or it has been for me, is working at those strands, right? Because I haven't had this immediate one time, one for all, albeit awakening. I have to take those crumbs as they come, as I'm working at those strands, the disbelief that was there or the misbeliefs that were there previously. So working at the strands would be meditating, spending time contemplating, showing up at things like this, gatherings like this, being a part of gatherings like this, whether it be sharing or listening in. You know, we never know how all of these things work together, how they all come together and assist us in this awakening process, right? And it also goes back again to self-love, getting to a point where throughout this awakening journey where it's becoming more commonplace for me to include everything, right? It's one of the reasons why I'm wearing, I don't know if you all can see the band that I'm wearing now, but I've been wearing this for a couple of weeks, and I plan to wear it throughout until the end of this year, because it's been a direct reminder to help me to include that too. Right? Because again, if I start with the basis that what I am is consciousness itself, right? There's nothing separate from me, as the top of this reading, as this reading is titled, mind and world are not separate. There's nothing separating me from, and when I say me, I mean consciousness. And that even took an awakening of sorts to get to that, right? When I initially attempted to work with processes like the loving all method, right? When I initially attempted to work with that particular process, there was a part of me that felt like it was the me. I was trying to say that this me loved everything. And that was causing some resistance for me, right? For this person. There's no language here fails when you attempt to talk about these particular things. These words don't make sense for what I'm trying to say. But I think at some level, you get where I'm going with this, right? This is really a repeat of what we already know. So, coming from a place of loving all, it was still the me that was attempting to love everything, right? From this perspective now, currently, it's not a me who's attempting to accept everything or to resist anything. It's fully, for me, about including that including that situation in what I am, right? It's not the me that I'm attempting to make okay with what's happening, you know, and that's what it had been. It was the me trying to be okay with what's going on, trying to accept what's going on, trying to push away what's going on. There was the me that was still very much solidly there saying, you know, this needs to make this go away or change this in some way, shape, or form. At this point, it's about understanding and recognizing that it's all that is. Consciousness is all that is. It doesn't belong to a me. We don't own consciousness. Consciousness is not mine to hold on to, right? It's not my thing to have. That's where the lights begin to come on. That consciousness is not my thing to have. Consciousness is what is, and it is here now. It's this reality is consciousness. When I speak now, I'm speaking to what I am, what I'm learning that I am, what I'm learning to include in what I am, right? Minus the me. It's only consciousness. That is reality. That is the self-love that I speak of when I say self-love, that too. Understanding, accepting what is. That is what love is, right? And it's where this whole principle of self-love now begins to become very much self-evident. Expanding out from this limited version of what I've accepted myself to be, right? It was from that limited place that I was attempting to accept this, that, and the other. Like, no wonder that wasn't working. The self doesn't like the small self doesn't like all of that. It just does not like to accept anything that, especially things that go against those false beliefs that have been established, right? Anything that rubs up against that. The small self wants nothing to do with that. And so therefore you have instant resistance. And that's why it's been critically important for me to begin to come from a place of being consciousness and not the me. Regina also spoke last week about, and I was already formulating, these thoughts were already formulating about this acceptance of every reality as it is. And making that connection that is consciousness literally accepting itself, loving itself. It is the epitome of what love is, right? So what she spoke about last week, the way we project outward what we have going on, what we're not willing to accept within ourselves, we are naturally going to project that outward. We're naturally going to pour that out upon any situation, any people, and we'll begin to see evidence of what we believe, right? It just becomes this very cyclical, continuous thing that occurs because we're caught up in that belief. We're coming from that place of small self. So all of the work, all of it is about forgiving yourself, letting go of judgment of yourself, because that self that you're releasing the judgment from isn't a small s self, it is consciousness. You're literally allowing consciousness to be free, to allowing it to be exactly what it is. This is an expression of love. If we're not willing to accept what we see, what we experience, what comes about, if we're not willing to accept anything and anyone as a part of what we are, we're literally immediately disconnecting ourselves from the truth. There's no other out there to blame for how I see you, how I see this situation. The situation, the other, is reality being what reality is, which is pure, free, loving consciousness, free to be whatever it chooses to be. And the more I've accepted that, the more I've begun to cognize that truth. Because that's the thing, is it becomes a connection between self-love and truth. Like they're synonymous, self-love and truth. Because the truth is what is. There's no doubt about that. The truth is what is. No matter what we would have it to be, no matter what we'd like it to be, no matter what perceptions we attempt to superimpose over truth. Truth is what it is, and it can't be anything other than what it is. So, and that also goes back to what Maharaj is saying here in this particular reading, towards the end of this reading. I know no sin nor sinner, and your distinctions and valuations do not bind me. That is a powerful statement to make. When we get to a point where the distinctions that other people make, the valuations that they place upon me or upon this situation, the light that they're choosing to shine outwards into the world, when we get to a point where that no longer binds my love, my affection, my beingness. Because as Maharaj is saying here, everybody believes according to their nature. It can't be helped, and nor need it be. Nor need it be. There's no need to be helped. There's nothing to forgive. Nor can it be, nor need it be regretted. Right? So there's no one to blame. That's why we can let go of judgment of even ourselves. That is the quickest and surest way to eliminate what Regina was talking about last week. This tendency to project outward what we're not willing or not ready to see within ourselves, to accept within ourselves. This ability to include everything, to resist nothing, is all of the work for me at this point. There's no other work to be done other than this from my teeny tiny little perspective. There's no other work to do except to see and to see truth, to see what reality really is. And that's just it. If you love the truth, you have to love reality exactly as it is. And I do love the truth. So in loving the truth, I have to love what shows up, because that's the truth, right? No matter what the pipe dreams or the fantasies are about what I would like it to be, reality is what it is. The truth is as it appears, exactly as it appears. Resistance can be let go of at that point. There's still plenty work for me to do around this. So, I'm not sitting here saying, well, I've figured out that I'm consciousness and you guys are consciousness and this is all consciousness and that we're all just interacting with consciousness as consciousness. You know, it's all good to know that intellectually, but it's a constant thing to experience that, to have that be my experience. It's getting better and better every single day, though. I must say that. Getting better and better at seeing reality as it is and saying, okay. That too. That's reality. That's consciousness being as free and loving as it ever was. That's all there ever was, actually. So I really enjoyed this particular snippet from Maharaj here, where he talked a lot about, there's this this idea. The questioner actually also talked about, there was a question that he was confused about the denial of causality here, right? Because what Maharaj appeared to be doing was just denying the cause of all of this. Like, you're saying that consciousness is everything and everything is consciousness, but what about when people do stupid things, right? What about when crazy things or bad things happen to good people? What about that? Is all of this stuff still consciousness? And Maharaj's response here was, I am is an ever-present fact. In other words, consciousness, again, is all there is. He goes on to say that mind is obsessed by the idea of causality and invents this creation and then wonders who is the creator. Isn't that just like ego, to create something and say, oh, who created that? You know, but the mind itself is the creator, is what Maharaj said. But even that isn't quite true. He went on to say here that the mind and the world are not separate. The created and its creator are one. Again, saying the same thing. This is also one of the reasons why I loved Rupert Spira's work so much, because he talked about consciousness being all that ever was or all that ever would be, but he talked about it in a way that helped me to begin to peel back some of the layers of misbelief or false beliefs that were there for me, and it was very helpful for me on this path. So yeah, this is him restating the same thing, that the I am is an ever-present fact. And I am created, he said, was an idea, right? That's the distinctions that have to be made. What's ideas? Which of this is an idea and which is actual truth? Which reminds me of Byron Katie's work. You know, is it true? We can question a thing in that way to really get down to the fact that it's more so that we're believing ideas or that we have these beliefs, you know, which has been really interesting for me with looking at reality through this lens now. Looking at reality not so much through the lens of, you know, there's a me here and stuff is happening to me and I don't have any control. You know, not looking through that lens anymore, but looking more through that more inclusive lens of consciousness. All of it, that too is part of what I am. So if I deny that, if I resist that, if I push that away, I'm pushing a part of myself, of what I am, away. And of course, experience has taught repeatedly that that is just not the highest and best way to get to where we're looking to get to here. So yes, this truth, the connection that self-love and truth are one, that all that is exactly what it should be, that it can't be any different, is a very liberating way of looking at this whole thing called life, this thing that we're experiencing here, these events and people and situations. It makes looking at that, it makes it easier to look at. I'm thinking about when I started out my prayer, there was a feeling of joy that bubbled up in me right as I was beginning to start praying. And I'm knowing that the joy that the topic that I'm talking about right now. The topic that I'm talking about, that is replacing old, worn out, no longer useful, these beliefs that have been there. And I know that they're being replaced. So there's this joy that bubbles up within me when I begin to think about this topic and talk about it. There's this sense of okayness, all rightness, that because I'm that understanding is beginning to flower, that everything is what you are. And can be accepted as such. It's okay to accept it as such. That to me is just joyous. That there's nothing that I need to cut off or erase or prevent from happening, right? There's not a me here making anything happen. So how could there be a me here to prevent something from happening? It's very liberating. And it connects everything together quite nicely, I think. A liberating way of seeing the world, seeing what's in the world, Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So again, and getting back to what I was saying about the letting go of the judgment of yourself, that also I think brings about a lot more joy. I'm sure that it does, because as you do that, as you begin to include that too, and that too, and that too, all of this is part of what I am. Is the more you're able to release those and relinquish that judgment of yourself. Because that's, again, what causes what Regina was talking about last week. That's what causes me to project out there and say, well, you're probably trying to get over on me, about something, because that's within me. Wherever I'm being fearful or afraid or of losing something or someone, if I haven't dealt with that and released that from within me, of course that's what my eyes are going to see. Of course that's what the universe is going to reflect back to me, is exactly what I believe to be true. The creator and the created are one. Yeah. So, I feel pretty complete here with what I've had to share, what I wanted to share about this topic, about self-love, the recognition of what that self-love really entails, and how, how much easier life is coming from that place of that too. That too is a part of what all of us are. and looking at everything and everyone in that aspect. So it sounds simple. It sounds like, it's just, it's just that. That's just what it is, But I know it's much deeper than that. I know that for me, it hasn't been just a, whoop, well, that's, of course, that's what it is. I didn't get to that point quite that simply. And the work that continues forward is just probably not as simple as it sounds. But again, it gets easier the more I practice it. The more I consciously connect the dots, the easier it gets. So I'm going to ask Dawn to post a link in the room for anyone who is inclined to donate today. She'll provide us a link here to do so. Awakening Together is run off of your donations, and they are truly appreciated. That's one of the ways they're run. They're actually run by consciousness. Consciousness is running the whole show. So there you go. All right. Thank you so much, Dawn. I love that was Gloria singing. That was Gloria singing that song. So I love it. All right. So is there anybody who would like to share? Now is the time for us to do so. So if you'd like to share, then go ahead and put your hand up. And Dawn, you can maybe let me know if someone has their hand up there.
Bev has her hand up.
Okay, awesome. Bev, the mic is yours.
I just really, I really enjoyed your sermon. I really, it's something that I have been looking at. My ego in the past has seen acceptance as just accepting that over there and trying to get it to be palatable for myself to live with, rather than seeing it as consciousness. And recently, when doing some inquiry into some difficult things that have shown up, I'm like, wow, that is all me. Like, I totally recognize just the oneness of what is showing up for me. The oneness that it's, I'm including it because I'm like, yeah, of course, that's me, and it's been a lot easier with that truth to be with what is. So so this was just right where I am. So thank you.
And thank you, Beth. Thank you for sharing. That is absolutely the thing, with that was my rub too, trying to make it fit, trying to forcing myself to, just forcing myself to accept what is. And it felt forced. You know what I mean? You can feel when you're forcing something versus just easing into it. You can feel the difference there. And so that's what I'm noticing nowadays. I don't feel that sense of, oh, I have to do this. I have to accept, I have to take this and run, It's not that. It's like, of course. Absolutely. That's all perfect freedom right there unfolding perfectly. Anyone else would like to share? Okay, Regina, this mic is yours.
Hello, Gloria. I really enjoyed listening to you today. It was, again, clear that the clarity that you were sharing was your own. You can always feel the difference between when someone is doing the work and they're sharing from their clarity and when they're just parroting what they've read or heard. It has a different feel about it. And I could feel your clarity. I could feel the awakenings are happening in you, the little mini pop, 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 pop. And I love the way you talked about the loving all method. The most common questions that I get from people is how to practice that loving all method. How, and the way they ask it is, how can you love, that, right? How can you love that bad thing that happened there, or that horrible thing that person said. And the way that I answer is, I'm not loving that necessarily. What's happening is that I'm being love, and no appearance can knock me out of it, right? I'm just being myself, and no appearance can knock me out of it anymore. So if I am love, then I naturally love all things, because love is what I am, and love is all I'm capable of. So it's not an outward focus, you know, like trying to love that. That's an outward focus. It's an inward focus. Who am I? And it's just abiding as myself always. So I think sometimes when people practice the loving all method, you talked about it as, you know, trying to get the little me to love. You know, the little me is always focused out. That's the way the little me is. When focused on thought is focused out. And outward is the direction of love, right? I mean, you know, eventually that love shines on everything outward, but it's not an outward effort. And that's the mistake that people are making. They're trying to go outward through the conditioned brain. You called it the false beliefs, you know, trying to project attention outward through the conditioned brain and love what's out there. And you're right, they're going right through the false beliefs. You can't do that. You don't, you know, if you think of attention as back here somewhere, or awareness is back here somewhere, you don't project out through the conditioned brain and try to love, because you can't do it. It's a matter of staying back here and seeking deeply into the heart, which the heart goes all the way through the body. So you stay back here and you sink deeply into the heart, and then you just stay here, right? And you be that. And then you just love. I mean, you're very aware that some of those appearances are painful appearances, you know. It's just that those painful appearances don't knock you out of being right here, staying right here. So I want to thank you for your sharing today. It was really gorgeous, as I mentioned. I can hear you're coming from your own clarity, and nothing excites me more. You know, I'm not deeply in touch with everyone. I'm deeply in touch with a few people. And some of you I only see every now and then. You should do a weekly gathering or something like that. And so I don't know what you're doing out there, you know? And when you show up and you speak with such clarity, I'm so happy, because I know that, you know, you're out of sight, but you're in the heart. And nothing would make me happier than that. So thank you very much for releasing the mic.
Thank you, Regina. Absolutely. Out of sight, but never out of mind, right? All right. Ruby has her hand up. Ruby, I'll release this mic to you.
It was just so perfect. I'm going to be very brief with this situation, but there was some chaos going on at work, and I had to write up something about what was happening and talk about the situation. So I'm writing it up just yesterday, went into work and started writing it up here, and then continued writing it up. And I wasn't finished. I was just writing the draft, trying to figure out how to say it. And I was writing down all my thoughts, and then I had this, I'm laughing now because I had this sense of love for all the people. And I start writing, I love everybody. I love this person. I love this person. I love this person. We have some new employees. I don't even know who those new persons are, but I must love them too. And I'm writing this and I'm saying, I can't send this in. I mean, but that's not the key. The key is the me was thinking and projecting out the love. And I know what to do with that. After your message, there was clarity of how to go about it and what my next practice is. To go back to the loving all practice, to know that it's consciousness. It's not me that's doing the loving, you know. So that was just so, and that situation has come to me before. I'm feeling so much love, 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 and not knowing what to do. And this was just perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And the music was lovely, lovely. And amen. I'm giving up the mic.
All right, thank you so much, Ruby, for sharing that. Again, you know, it's just, and that's one of the things that I have come to truly appreciate, that when you begin to look at things the way that we've been talking about, looking at through this wider, more inclusive lens, that you're expanding your sense of self out, is really what it is. That's what the band helps me to do. It helps me to release more of this limited little self and to include everything in the sense of self. Like I'm expanding out this in this beautiful way. And that's what your sharing just made me think of as well. You're expanding out your sense of self to include everything, everyone, every circumstance, every weather, every cold, flu bug, all of it's included, right? Right, to Dawn, I wish you all a beautiful, beautiful blessing as we enter into this new year 2020, and love to you all.
Thank you for watching. This was our weekly gathering that we hold online. For more information, you can visit our website at awakening-together.org, or you can subscribe to our Awakening Together channel and click the bell for more notifications when we post our weekly gatherings. Thank you again for watching.